Hey, what's up, everybody? It's BDL44 coming at you with another video as always. All right, so we're talking about BK right now. This is Brooklyn Nets time. Um, I think the front runners for the NBA championship, definitely the front runners for the Eastern Conference. Um, obviously they got Steve Nash as their head coach, and it's his second year doing the job. And in my opinion, he did a pretty solid job to start off. Of course, injuries kind of hurt them, COVID protocol, stuff like that kind of got in the way. Kyrie Irving took some time off and things like that. But overall, I think Steve Nash was able to do a really good job in a kind of tough situation as a rookie coach. Come in there and try to lead Hall of Famers to a championship, and they don't require a lot of coaching in that front three, but they do have a lot of young players on this team who are going to need to develop, and it's going to be upon his coaching staff. It's going to be their responsibility to try to give these guys some opportunities to do that in the midst of what I think is a very, very, very crowded roster. You know, people always have this run-in, theme about LeBron James needing a lot of help. Have you guys glanced at this Brooklyn Nets roster? They have over 25 players currently listed on their roster. 25 players is what I counted. And we all know you can't have over, what is it? I think it's 16 is the maximum that you can get, that you can have on any roster with like 3 reserves or something like that. I know it's 12 in your main rotation. I think you get like 3 reserves and like 2 others or something like that. So clearly they're going to have to do a lot of cuts. So what this roster is going to look like versus what it is right now, when it's all said and done, I have no idea, because they just simply have far, far, far too many players currently listed as Brooklyn Nets right now. Just simple and plain. Another thing of note to mention in regards to the Brooklyn Nets is the news that just came out about what's going on in New York. Basically, if you want to have any type of workout, indoor closed setting workout, if you're an athlete or if you're a private person like myself, you want to go to a gym, you got to have at least one vax shot in New York at this time. So that means that the Brooklyn Nets and the New York Knicks are going to have to get vaxxed sooner or later in order to effectively do their jobs. So they're pushing the mandate, and New York is definitely going to have to adjust. So let's jump into this roster, because there's a lot to say, man. This is gonna be a long one. All right, I'm not gonna harp too much on these 3 superstars: KD, Kyrie, and James Harden. We all know who they are. MVP caliber players, 2 out of 3. One of them is the best ball handler in the history of the sport. The reason why they are the front runners to win the NBA championship is because these players have had a year to learn one another. So that experience is what you would give them the edge over, say, the Lakers, even though they have 2 of their 3 superstars who have played one another and already won a championship together. But that third one is such an important piece over there, to where you see this as a more seamless fit, and you couple that with their experience with one another, playing basically half a season together. And you like that, you like the fluidity of what it is that they have going on. They don't need to necessarily surround themselves with shooters and stuff like that as the Lakers do, so that they don't have spacing issues at all. They have a more seamless kind of Golden State type of feel to what it is that they'll be able to put on the floor if it all comes together in health. Players that can shoot, players that can take over, players that don't miss at all, players that are going to make every free throw, players that are not going to make too many mistakes just in general, players who are going to get all their calls because they're superstars. These things ultimately just give you an understanding that the Brooklyn Nets are probably the front runners, if they're healthy, to win it all. As a Laker fan, it pains my soul to say it. And I do think we have a hell of a shot at winning it. It's not like I think that that's a foregone conclusion that the Nets will beat us, but I think it does come down to those 2 teams. That's what I got, man. KD, like I said, I don't want to harp on these superstars in this video because it's too much to say. But KD, simply the greatest scorer alive, period. So a lot of people are going to dismiss that. I don't know why they would. I don't think anybody should be even talking about that. He's the best scorer alive, period. Kyrie Irving, the best ball handler in the world, maybe ever. I don't think anybody dribbles better. He has infinite ball handling skills. I think his ball handling combinations are probably above even what he realizes sometimes. He's just out there doing what comes naturally to him. It's like a spiritual thing when he's dribbling the ball. It's just different. It's a lot different. And James Harden. And we know James Harden. I look at James Harden as like James Harden reminds me of one of those dudes who in like the 1300s would have been like one of the world's greatest thinkers. Like he's the dude that discovers that the world is actually not flat. Like I look at him literally as like a basketball version of one of those guys. He's just all world thinker. He's a superior superior basketball player to the highest level. I think when it really comes down to it, James Harden is underrated. Because if you look at what he's done, not only with the Rockets in terms of all that he was able to accomplish in a Mike D'Antoni system, getting the most out of it and putting up GOAT level numbers, just GOAT level numbers. But then you look at what he's done here. In leaving that situation, one thought that it would be difficult for him to transition into a facilitating role where he's pass first. Ran into perfection. He was arguably the best point guard in the NBA last year. So I don't think there's really a conversation to be had about James Harden, top 5 player in all of basketball, top 50 player of all time in my mind. I don't think there are a lot of people who've ever played the game that are actually better at the game than James Harden. They may have won more. They may be better at certain specific things. But I can't find maybe even 30 guys in the history of the sport that could accomplish more on a basketball floor offensively than James Harden. He's that gifted, dude. He's really that gifted. And when you consider the fact that he's not even the best player on this team, they're going to walk away with a championship at some point. we can't stop him every year. I mean, that's how great this team is. So you're just waiting on it, basically. And the rest of the roster matters in theory because, of course, of all the things that matter. You got to bring the team together to drag them along. You got to have defensive bigs. You got to have role players. You got to have everybody come together to do their thing. You need your Robert Ory's. You need your guys like that. You need your James Posies. They got to be here, right? But at the end of the day, KD, Kyrie, and Harden are what it's about. And if they're all healthy, someone has to beat them. And that's what it comes down to. You got to prove that you can beat them. So that's what I got to say about that. Just 3 of the best players ever played the game all together at once in their prime. And they're just getting started. It's not like they're going anywhere. Kyrie is up for his extension. James Harden is up for his extension. It's a lot of talk about Kyrie saying he doesn't want to play for any other team. So basically the Nets are not going to trade him. You don't have to really go any further into it. He will not be traded. I hear the chatter. It's not happening. He's staying right there. So that's what I got to say, man. All hail the great ones. They're legends, walking legends. Enjoy them and appreciate them while they're here. All right. Next up, I'm going to mention Joe Harris. I'm going to mention Joe Harris as the next guy up because I still believe in his shooting ability to that degree. I don't know that he's the 4th best player on this team, but I am telling you that he should be the one with the green light 4th coming up. Like the next guy who should be able to take as many shots as he wants to take, definitely Joe Harris. Now, he did not have the greatest playoffs. He did not fill in and score like you would want him to score when they went through the injury issues and it was only KD out there. So some would argue that maybe they would have been willing to give up on Joe Harris at his price. But with that type of shooting ability and coupled with the fact that he's going to be having open shots, and you consider the fact that they were missing 2 Hall of Famers. So whatever his role is in your mind, you're certainly not going to dock him for not elevating his role when you're never going to ask him to elevate his role again. And if you do have to ask him to elevate his role again, then you failed because you should have put more talent around this team, for which I think they've done. So I think they'll be all right regardless. But Joe Harris is an elite 3-point shooter. He's won 2 3-point contests. He's outshot people such as the likes of Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry, and all the best shooters. Dame Lillard, they all tried to line up against him. He shot them all down. So this is an elite 3-point shooter. You'd like to see him be more consistent out there, but then again, you understand that none of his looks are consistent, not on this team. And if he were on a different team that needed shooting or a team that had a system that was fit for shooting, like, say, Utah, then his numbers would elevate quite a bit. So I'm a believer in Joe Harris. I know what he can do, and you gotta deal with him. Simple as that. You have to deal with him. Luckily enough, he's on this team, so he's not shooting as much. That's good for the rest of us. All right, so next name up I want to mention is Bruce Brown. Now, I'm mentioning names. They're not in order of importance because, to be honest with you, nobody's important on this roster. Cut and dry. Everybody's behind KD, Kyrie, and Harden. The rest of these guys are just that, the rest of these guys. So I'm just going to name them as a seal. But Bruce Brown broke out quite a bit last year, man. Quite a bit. because Bruce Brown was a guy who had to step in when guys were kind of, you know, dealing with injury issues and COVID protocol, and was able to show that he's a real player in this league. A shooting guard with the ability to rebound the ball quite a bit and score quite a bit. I would argue he was a breakout candidate. And for you to be able to break out within this environment, when minutes are limited and usage is limited for everybody, that's super special, man. So I know for a fact that Bruce Brown, with a bigger role, would give you bigger production. He's proven that he's ready to break out into a bigger role, but he's also proven that that he likes being in Brooklyn and that this is a situation that he can help them succeed in. So I would hold on to him. I would make sure that he was a player on this roster going forward, because he's going to be a great complementary defensive piece at that guard spot. And to be honest with you, they have some good defenders on this team, but most of them don't play guard. So he's going to be important in that regard, in my opinion. All right, so next name up, Blake Griffin. And we know BG. BG's a Clipper legend, you know, a guy who was taken over, first overall for the Clippers and changed life around for them completely. Before they got Chris Paul, they had Blake Griffin, and Blake Griffin was one of the players that showed us that he was legit. He's a great facilitator from the 4 spot. I think people don't realize how fantastic of a passer he can be. He helps make people better. Obviously, his shot has gotten tremendously better over the years. He's turned himself into a very, very, very consistent three-point shooter. Rebounds the ball well. You know who he is. Jumped over key, is one of the most athletic players of all time. Of course, a lot of that athleticism has kind of fallen off since he's a little older at this stage in his career. But with a little rejuvenation coming from leaving Detroit in that bad situation, he's come to a Brooklyn Nets team that has a championship on their mind. And I can't think of a much better situation for a guy who has played 4 championships but never quite got close to the finals, with the Clippers being that their situation was as it was. But all in all, Blake Griffin is still a very serviceable power forward who I think will have opportunity to start with this team once again. Had a good year with the Brooklyn Nets last year. Got off the ground and actually dunked the ball again, for which he refused to do for Detroit. Thought it was good, like a running joke. I don't know what was going on there, to be honest with you, but he just didn't dunk at all for that team. His situation was interesting because, of course, the Clippers, he had signed with them for a long deal. They told him he was going to be the face of the franchise and all that, and then they traded him away. And really, it was a situation where he was stuck on a big contract with a team he had no interest in being a part of. And not only did he not have any interest in being a part of that team, but most devastatingly, they didn't really have assets to get better anytime soon. They were stuck at a stranglehold. They had lost their pick. So it was just a bad situation headed south. And they didn't project to get better until literally right now. So it was just a bad situation. I could totally see why he would be really, really taken aback by that whole thing. But he handled it well. He played good ball for them for the most part. Dealt with whatever it is that they had to deal with as a team that wasn't really winning too much. And he finds himself here where he gets a chance to do so. So congratulations to Blake Griffin and keeping your money, getting your money, but also seeing that contract through so you can find yourself in a situation like this. This is rough. I know it. All right. Next name I'm going to mention, Patty Mills, infamous for being a Spur backup shooting guard, specialist, technician, shoot you down type of guy. He is finally wearing a different uniform than the Spurs. He's been a Spur for a million years. People have been saying he was going to be rumored to be coming to New York for many, many years. It was the Knicks instead of the Nets, but he found himself in New York nevertheless with the Nets. And I think he's going to help this team quite a bit. He puts another shooter on the floor for them, another killer instinct type of guard, shoot first guard that's going to continue to put lots and lots of points on the board for a team that I think could average upwards of 140 points a game if they choose to be completely honest with you. He's going to be a reason why that is. We know Patty Mills. Olympic Patty Mills is a totally different beast than NBA Patty Mills. He did a whole lot of good work for the Australian team. And look, we know Patty Mills. If I'm not mistaken, Patty Mills got a championship with Kawhi and them. I think he was a part of that team. I don't think he goes back any further than that. But he's been with the Spurs his entire career. And we know for a fact that Patty Mills is a very, very good percentage shooter. He's a clutch shooter. And he's somebody that you cannot leave alone for even one possession. He'll knock you down. So that's what I think of him. Got a couple players that I did homework on, as I always do. If you've watched a couple of these videos, you know I get to the rookies at the end. And there got a couple players here that I did do some homework on. One being Cam Thomas, Nicholas Claxton, Sekou Dumbuya, and Deron Sharp are guys that I did homework on for this particular team. So I catch them out at the end of this video. But for now, let's keep on going. We got DeAndre Bembry is the next name I see here. And DeAndre Bembry is a guy who played for Toronto, played for Atlanta. And it's just, I think at this point, he's like a 5-year guy, 6-year guy. Role-playing shooting guard, small forward. As you can see, I don't know a whole lot about DeAndre Bembry, but I have seen him play some. And he's going to get an opportunity with this team. So I don't know how his minutes and situation will come about, obviously, on a team like this. But he's a guy who's gotten some good role-playing minutes on previous teams in the past. So I'm pretty sure his number will be called this year. Here and there, I guess. Who knows? Depending on how he plays, depending on how Steve Nash's vision is for their bench. So moving on there. We got Paul Millsap, who's going to be signing with this team this year, or he has signed with this team. And he's a guy who's been a very, very, very reliable stretch power forward, two-way power forward, all-star level power forward in this league for a good, 15 years now? He's been around. Started his career off with the Utah Jazz, was a star for the Jazz, did some great work down there. Left there, I think he went to Atlanta for a bit, continued his good play, his fantastic, stellar play. Left there, and then ended up, if I'm not mistaken, where did he go after that? It's one of those situations where my mind went blank. But nevertheless, he ended up in Denver, of course, and then continued his balling ways in Denver. And, Paul Millsap is a guy who's, at this point, I'm sure, just wants to win a championship. Just like the rest of these guys on the back of this bench with cachet, they really just want to be in a position where they can play for something big. And I think he's going to get that opportunity here, to say the least. And he provides a great deal of front court depth, for which they have a plethora of, plenty of front court depth. So next name up, LaMarcus Aldridge, yet another one of those guys who's looking for a championship. Of course, we know LaMarcus went through something with his health. They told him he couldn't come back to the game. Got an update. They said he can come back to the game. So he's back, and we're happy to see him, man. That's what it's all about, leaving on your own terms. And really, LaMarcus is chasing a ring, just like the rest of the guys. He started his career off in Portland, was a superstar there, mid-range specialist, one of the best mid-range bigs you'll ever see. And really, he continued his career with the San Antonio Spurs after trying to figure out if he wanted to come to the Lakers or not. Went to the Spurs, and that didn't quite pan out. He wasn't a Spur. For those who know what I'm talking about, Spur fans, they know when a guy's a Spur guy. That's not a Spur guy. He was just there. And it didn't really work out. He gave him some good years, but it just was never a good fit. They didn't quite have the pieces around him to make the most out of what his tenure was. It was a weird fit to begin with, to be honest with you. He was trying to come in and kind of replace Tim Duncan. It was never going to happen. So, yeah, I just didn't like that particular decision. Thought it sent his career in a different direction than he was tenured to, than he was projected to go, if that's the word, projected to go. He should have stayed in Portland, to be honest with you. He was a star there. But whatever. People do what they do. And, LaMarcus Aldridge is now with the Brooklyn Nets. And he's going to have a chance to, just like I said, boost to that front court. Minutes will come and go depending on what, Steve Nash sees, because they have a lot of bigs. Some of them young that they could really use out there defensively. We'll get into those guys. So we'll see. I don't think LaMarcus is going to play as much as people think he is. I don't. Depending on how much he has left. Now, if he comes out and he's scoring like a madman, of course you got to play him. He's a star. But at this stage in his career, coming back from what it is he's coming back from, I expect him to do more sitting than standing and running and all that. So let's see. Next name up, James Johnson. James Johnson. It's a dude you do not mess with. Guy who grew up doing martial arts. His whole family does martial arts, and they are experts. So that's what you know him from first. But what he actually is a guy who plays a lot of defense, high energy guy, would jam on your head in his prime. I'm not sure if he still has that type of energy these days. I haven't seen him play in a while. It's kind of been a journeyman in his career. But he's a guy who's been, had some highlighted career years with, like, Toronto. He played fantastic there. I remember him having a fantastic year, I believe, with the Miami Heat as well. But James Johnson is just a guy who's been all over the league doing exactly what it is that he does, providing a great sense of toughness to your bench. You see him over there, he's somebody you got to deal with. He's a physical guy, and he rebounds the ball well, and he continues to just bring a certain level of toughness and leadership to what they have here. And I think he's going to help some of these young bigs that we're going to get into kind of get their footing and be pros, because some of the stuff that he does, they do. So I think he'll be a great coach on the floor for some of these young guys. All right. Let's see what else we got going on here. There's so many names, y'all, you'd be surprised. But I think we've gotten to a point where we're now ready to talk about the guys that I did homework on, I believe. So let's just kind of, let's move on to what their rookie situation looks like. And I did write down a few of these names I want to get to here. And they are Reggie Perry, who's a 6'8" player out of Mississippi State with the 57th pick. And they got Marcus Zikowski, and he's actually Michael Carter Williams' little brother, coming out of Creighton with the 49th pick. So I'm curious to see if he's going to carry some of that energy that his big bro has. Raquan Gray, he's a power forward out of Florida State, 6'8" guy, 59th pick taken this year. And they got an undrafted guy out of Providence by the name of David Duke Jr., 6'5", point guard, shooting guard combination. We're looking at a guy also out of Pepperdine, Kessler Edwards, guy from out here, 44th pick in the draft, 6'7" small forward. And of course, I'm not happy to say this, they got Devontae Cacok. They just picked up my guy from the LA Lakers, NBA champion in 2020, first team all G League in 2020. This is a really, really, really good power forward that they just picked up practically for nothing. We basically, and I'm not happy about this at all as a Lakers fan, but you guys gave us DeAndre Jordan, and in turn, we let you have our young power forward prospect. Trust you me, I'd make that trade if I were you guys 100 times out of 100 times. Devontae Cacok is a diamond in the rough. Nobody even knows who he is. 6'8" power forward out of UNC Wilmington. He led the NCAA in rebounding in 2018. This is a player who can do multiple things for you, rebounding, defending. He's turned himself into a fantastic athlete. He covers space very, very fast. This is a power forward with the emphasis on power. And he's only going to get better. And I'm only going to get more unhappy as he does, because the Lakers should have kept him in their farm system and had him as our 12th man on our back of our bench. I think he's going to carve out a role someday in this league. I think it's going to be tough on this particular team. He signed a two-way deal, so he's probably going to be playing some more G League minutes, but he's past that, y'all. Like I said, this is a first team all G League guy in 2020. He has an NBA championship. He don't need to be doing no G League nothing. In my opinion, Devontae Cacok should be the 12th man in the back of your bench, playing garbage minutes at this stage, ready to show that he can do better than that. That's where I think he should be right now. I don't think he's going to get that opportunity because you guys have a lot of bigs, a lot of young guys. I'm a big fan of Devontae. Very upset the Lakers let him go. All right, now let's get into the players I did some homework on. The first name I'll mention is Sekou Dembuya, if I'm saying it correctly. 6'9" power forward, 6'11" wingspan out of Detroit. They took him with the 15th pick in 2019. The thing about Sekou is he stood out to me because he was a high draft pick with the Detroit Pistons. And I know Detroit didn't have the role for him. They never developed him properly. He was like the only youngster on the team with Blake Griffin as literally the only piece that they had to show for all of their troubles and struggles. And he just didn't develop well in that situation. They put people in front of him. There was different things that happened in Detroit. They were kind of looking toward basically being as bad as they could so they could ultimately land Cade as they did. So his development just did not occur. And the thing about him is he's a defensive big with some athleticism, can run the floor very well, battles in the post, you know what I mean? He has a low stance and quick feet on the defensive side. He's one of those guys who can guard multiple positions, guard smaller guys, and he makes you work. He's essentially a defensive player who, if you score on him, you sweating because of it, you're working a very, very lot trying to go up against this guy. And that's what it is. He's a physical guy. He has fantastic rebounding potential, can grab and go and start the break himself. Strong and fast athlete. Simple as that. He's still a project, though. He has a lot of weaknesses. Not a world beater by any stretch of the imagination, but you can see the frame for a very, very good athletics, fast power forward if he's developed properly. He's going from a situation where there's nothing there for him to look up to a situation where he's surrounded by the best players in the world and a bunch of vets who've already done it. and some young defensive bigs that'll keep him sharp in practice. This is a fantastic situation for Sekou Doumbouya. I don't think he'll get any playing time, but I don't think it's going to matter because this type of environment will make it so that his career is prolonged and his development trajectory will go up just simply from being around these people. And that is what I like, and that's why I did homework on this kid, because he's technically a bust. But what do I know? 3 years is not enough time to determine that. It's not. We don't know nothing. Literally nothing. All we know is he's been in a situation where he hasn't developed. That's it. Now he's in a new situation, and this is what I scream about. I'm thinking about a guy like Kevin Knox from New York. I said the same thing today in that video. Some guys just need a new scenery. They got drafted high to be something that they're never going to be in this environment that they're in. They need to get out of that environment to redefine who it is they're going to be going forward, and that's exactly what I think of Sekou. Sekou's in a good spot. So, let's move on. All right, next name we got here, Nick Claxton. He's a guy who is also another fantastically gifted defensive big with super long arms. This is a 6'11 center with 7'3 wingspan. I'm thinking a guy like Derek Favors type of body. Very, very, very good at driving and ball handling. So you imagine a guy who can actually drive and ball handle, 6'11 with 7'3 wingspan. He's leading the break. Yeah, that's a unique type of unicorn type of deal right there. Multi-positional at that height and weight. He's multi-positional. Defensive big, rim protector. He uses his length and switches very well. Rebounds and runs well with or without the ball. This is a guy who can move with his size. An agile defender. Balance and lateral quickness as well. He can guard smaller guys and pick and roll defender extraordinaire, basically. He stays down on pump fakes, so he's a high IQ defensive player. He's not going to be an idiot jumping all over the place when you pump fake him. Workable mechanics in terms of his three-point shot. He has a good set three-point shot, believe it or not. Definitely somebody you don't want to leave alone. You sag off of him, you've been shot down. So this is a player who pretty much is complete. He can pass well. You know, he has a playmaking potential as well. I didn't see too many holes in Nick Claxton's game. He does everything. So I learned quite a bit about this particular player today. I thought he was one thing and he's totally something else. So I'm very, very excited about his future with the Brooklyn Nets because I think he fits in quite a bit with what it is that they need, which is defensive bigs who can rebound the ball and not take shots away from KD, Kyrie, and James Harden. And Nick Claxton is the quintessential player that's going to do just that. And I love it for this team. I like him for this team. I think the minutes are going to go up. I think he's developing properly as a guy who's going to continue to defend big. He's going to be their Tristan Thompson, basically. And that is exactly what they need him to be. But unlike Tristan, he can shoot a little bit, so he's going to be even better in some ways. So let's see. Now the next name we got here, let me make sure I'm not skipping one, because I know that I did 4. All right, here we go. Cam Thomas, the secret weapon. Somebody who I think can be their Rondo. And what I mean by that is not in how he plays. He's not a passer. That's not his game. What I'm saying is, you got your 3 superstars, and then you got that young kid who's like crazy great, and you're like, he can actually play with these guys. He's going to hold his own while they're on the floor with him. He's one of those. Cam Thomas can start for this team. Like, he's good enough to start. I think the situation here is obviously superior athletes, Kyrie Irving and all of that, so, you know, he's not going to be getting no starting minutes. But he's going to be pressing guys like Patty Mills and these DeAndre Bembry guys. He's going to be pressing them for minutes. It's going to be hard not keeping this guy on the floor. He is essentially their THT. You know, I value him even higher than Claxton because of his superior scoring ability. This is a killer extraordinaire in his infant stages. Killer, emphasis. He averaged 23 points a game in college. 3-level score first guy. Not shoot first, score first. In other words, he can shoot, he can drive, he can do anything he has to do to put that ball in the basket. He's going to do it. And he's good at it. 88% free throw shooter in college, 32% from 3. He will get better. The mechanics, the balance, it's all there. He will get better at 3. And 40% field goal shooter. But this is somebody who is very, very gifted at shooting floaters. Very gifted. If you leave him alone, he will score over you. He's a talented pick and roll scorer. You know, he was an all-time scorer at Oak Hill Academy. If you know Oak Hill Academy, some of the best high school, college, pro players that ever played this game went to Oak Hill. He's the all-time leading scorer. That guy, Cam Thomas. Confident, tough shot maker. His confidence is unwavering. He believes himself to already be a great scorer, and he proves it when he has his opportunity. I think he had a 34-point game in the summer league. Lit people up. One of the best players on the floor in the summer league. He lit them up. Shot creator, you know, gifted at drawing fouls. He'll flop on you too. I saw many a highlight where he was flailing his arms, drawing fouls. Very annoying stuff. He'll rise straight over you. He's a hop shooter. You know, rarely do you see guys that jump into their jump shot like him. You know, he has a very unique jump shot. He puts the jump in jump shot. It's a hop, and it's wet. He'll rise over you too. You got your hand up, you think you got him. Nah, he's shooting over you and it's going in. He has a rhythm shot that he practices with people in his face. And trust you me, he can hit it. He can hit it well. He has a nice turnaround jumper too. Back to the basket, fadeaway stuff. Really pretty balance on his fadeaway jump shot. It's a sight to see as well. So yeah, deep 3-point shooter. He can shoot that Dame shot. He shoots it. That Steph shot. Yeah, he has that. Transition score, of course, you'd imagine a 3-level score with this type of athleticism and speed is going to be fantastic in transition. He's actually not a speedster, to be honest with you, but he does have a good first step that he uses, headies and stuff like that. He can get past you. He's not overly fast or quick, but he's quick enough to be in this level and still do his thing. Talented pick and roll scorer, as already said. Attacks the D and doesn't let them up. That was another thing that was a standout thing about his particular style of play. If he's in transition and you're trying to set up, he's going to attack you. He's gifted at seeing you backing up, backpedaling, and attacking you. He's very good at that. Do not think that you have any time to set up against a Cam Thomas-led offense. You don't. So that's what I want to say about Cam Thomas. He's just a gifted scorer already out the gate as a rookie. He's ready to go. He is going to get buckets. Period. So, in my mind, let's say Kyrie Irving steps away, Cam Thomas can come in and score like the wind with KD on the floor, with Harden on the floor. He has the potential to be a great scorer from the 1-2 spot. Great, not good, great. So that's what I want to say about Cam Thomas. I think he could potentially be the 4th greatest player on this team by the end of the season. Like, I literally think he's going to be the Rondo. I do. I don't think there's going to be any trouble for all of his skills to translate, and the fact that his motor is so high and his percentages are so high, particularly from the free throw line, and he draws fouls as well as anybody, his scoring is going to go up even with scores on the floor. So I think it would be a very, very good decision for Steve Nash to create scenarios for this kid to get meaningful basketball done, even if it means he's taking the final shot against a team like Sacramento or something. It may cost you a win, but what you want to do is develop this dude into being a killer, the type of killer that I know he can be. Because the thing about this team, as we already know, is that they have a lot of youth, but it's short-term youth because they're not going to be able to keep these guys once they start getting good. This is the problem that the Nets are going to run into. And most teams that have 3 superstars are going to have the same problem, of course. You just don't have the money. So as your good players get better, you got to watch them walk out the door. So that's going to be a little frustrating to watch some of those guys see who it is that they can afford to keep. Maybe somebody will take a pay cut to stay with this team, but most of these guys are going to probably take off at some point. But while you have them, this team looks like it has enough to me to really, really do it because they have guys that are not taking shots away from the stars. The stars can be high usage, get their 17 shots a game each, so it's to where nobody else shoots, and they still have players doing what it is that they do out there. That's a very, very, very wonderful thing to have go on as a whole. I feel like I'm missing a player, man. Let me just look through my notes. I get a feeling I'm missing somebody. I was. Deron Sharp. Deron Sharp was the first player I looked up on this team. And I'm like, oh, there's somebody I'm missing, man. Deron Sharp is a 6'11", 7-foot wingspan center out of North Carolina. Offensive glass cleaner extraordinaire. He's an offensive rebounder with the motor, that will, start up a rocket ship. This dude just has energy on the glass. You think you got a second chance, third chance, fourth chance, fifth chance with this guy on the floor. He's one of those. Second chance creator, as I said, putbacks and tip ins. Box out king is what I wrote down. Box out king. He will seal you. You can't get around him. His big body and the way that he's built, you cannot get around this dude. He's one of those. He has fantastic timing, good on hustle plays, 50-50 balls, things like that. He gets involved. Decent rim protector. Surprisingly enough, with all that he does, they labeled him a decent rim protector, which I thought was curious because it looks like he has the makings of being a very good one. So that's just what they said. He rotates well, has help side potential. Defensively, he's smart. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to stay in position. Switches well, good footwork on the defensive end. He affects shots with effort. He puts forth effort, and when he does so, shots are usually missed. So this is a guy who, the more he does in terms of effort, the better and more effective he tends to be. Can facilitate from the 5 spot. Now this is what makes him special. De'Ron Sharpe can facilitate. De'Ron Sharpe is a gifted passer from the 5 spot. And we love those type of players. You think about players who like, the Sacramento Kings front court from the early 2000s. You think about guys like Mason Plumlee, Julius Randle. There's so many different guys, obviously, Nikola Jokic, who facilitate well from their position. They don't need to facilitate from the point guard position. LeBron James, obviously. Think about a couple of guys that came into this league. Mobley is one of those guys. Who else? My guy Scotty Barnes is like that. So you got players coming into this league that know how to make other people better simply by doing what it is that they do. They don't need to be point guards to do it, and that's beautiful because you got guys like Kyrie, like, of course, Cam Thomas, who, while James Harden may be sitting down, can still get fantastic looks from having guys like that, as well as Blake Griffin as well, and Millsap, and it's just endless. They have fantastic passers from the power forward position, all up and down this roster, in the center position, all up and down this roster, and De'Ron Sharpe can help with that very, very well. So I love this player particularly for the Brooklyn Nets. If Claxton, for some reason, is somebody that isn't quite giving them what they need, De'Ron Sharpe should be able to. They took him with the 29th pick. And this guy he's the truth. He's exactly what they need, So for me, watching, this team from afar before doing this homework, I was looking at them and saying, where are they going to find defense? They were horrible defensively last year. How are they going to get stops? Now I walk away from the situation saying, you know what? They have defensive bigs who will be the last line of defense. They have offensive rebounders who are going to give them second chance points to players who you can't afford to let have second chance opportunities. So this is a team that they're a lot better than you even think they are, believe it or not. I mean, when you consider after the homework being done, these bigs that they got, how they find room to play them is another story. Because with the Millsaps and the Aldridge and the Blake Griffins, those guys' names are going to demand they get minutes when you really should be playing Claxton and Sharpe. That's what I think is going to be the balance for Steve Nash. How do you tell these superstar guys that they done straight up, homie, sit down and let De'Ron Sharpe and Claxton guard those dudes? Millsap, you ain't got no business trying to check Joel Embiid, none of that. That should never, ever be the case. Blake Griffin should never be lined up against those guys with a De'Ron Sharpe on this roster. So that's going to be the balance and the discipline for Steve Nash. Play these youngsters because they give you what you need. They give you what you need. So that's what I got, man. It's the Brooklyn Nets, man. I don't know what to tell you. I'm hopeful that I can be wrong about my prediction and them being the favorites to win a championship because I know that my team is right there with them. But at the end of the day, this is a team that's ready to go. And we're going to have to bring our absolute best to even take something from them. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. I'm excited about it. I think it's set in stone that they're going to be coming out of the East. I don't see nobody beating them. Respect to the champs. They wouldn't have got past them if they were healthy. Simple as that. And we all know it. So this is what it is. It's the Nets Eastern Conference. It's the Lakers Western Conference as far as I'm concerned. Until someone snatches it from them, it is what it is with respect, of course, again, to the champs. It just is what it is, baby. My name is BDL44. Was there anything else I wanted to get to in regards to this team? Not really. It's all been said. Kyrie Irving will not be traded. James Harden and Kyrie Irving, I expect to sign their extensions very soon. And this team has a core that's probably going to walk away with a championship or two. That's what I got. Thanks for watching. Peace.